Okay, so welcome everybody to our special anniversary event, Change for Good, where we're looking at the positives to come out of the last year's very strange circumstances. I know that technology has really been extremely helpful in being able to do my job properly. Jumping on a Zoom call like this has been absolutely brilliant. And hopefully it's something that we will be taking forward and making the best possible use out of going forward. But it's not about me this afternoon. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the stage over to Pam Holgate from NightSafe, who's going to tell us a little bit about what you have found to be a real positive. Thank you, Pam.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all very well. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the campaign coordinator for NightSafe. NightSafe is a charity supporting homeless young people, 16 to 24 years of age, across Lancashire, predominantly the Blackburn with Darwen and surrounding areas. We have a day centre and an emergency night shelter in the Boulevard Centre at Blackburn, and then we have 4 supported accommodation houses across Blackburn where we have 20 young people. We're full, we have 20 young people who we are supporting. We also have an outreach service, and with the support of children in need, we have a learning coordinator to ensure that all our young people in our houses are in education, employment and training, and the young people that come through our doors at the day centre get access to support, advice and guidance in relation to what is available to them. Dead quickly, and Gareth, please give me a countdown because I can talk for 10 years, never mind 10 minutes. So I don't mind if you go like that, I'll stop. Obviously when COVID hit, our day centre and night shelter were closed, which was really, really difficult for us. But also, if you can imagine living in a house with 20, 16 to 24 year olds, quite a big family, we also had to manage all those young people across our 4 houses. On reflection, I was going to say what a fabulous 12 months. I have to say, on reflection as a charity, it's been really good for us in relation to the day centre. 2 months after closing, working really hard with Blackburn, with Darwen Council, who've been absolutely fantastic. They're public health officers. We were allowed to open the day centre with reduced numbers. And the first 2 young people that came through, and when we talk about the day centre, predominantly we're talking about our street homeless young people, and we have around a dozen street homeless young people that access the day centre to have a wash, to wash the clothes, to have some lunch with us or some tea with us, and take some food away with us. The 2 young people that came through the door when we opened the day centre doors 2 months into COVID, literally walked in and burst into tears, 2 young lads, and said for 8 weeks they'd not had a shower, they'd not had a hot meal, and they'd survived on whatever they could find. And it just makes you realise the value of what we do. And as a result of that, we had to reduce the numbers of young people coming through the doors. So the positives: we've created a fantastic schedule now with our young people that come through the doors, and they're absolutely brilliant because they might not have a watch, they might not have a clue what day it is, but they flipping know what time they come to us, and they're there on the door and they're ready. And we have schedules so they can wash their clothes, they can have a shower, and we do, as opposed to doing group work, which we did with them pre-COVID, post-COVID, a lot of it now is some bespoke one-to-one work with them, and the feedback's been really positive, in that more often than not they can open up better when they're on their own, and they get to know our volunteers and our support workers on a more personal relationship. And there has been some fabulous work done with the street homeless. The night shelter, I go like that, I'm at home, so I don't know why I'm going like that because it's not up there, but never mind. Our night shelter has 5 bedrooms. At the moment, we're only allowed 4 because of the COVID restrictions and allowing bathroom, kitchen and living access. So again, just before Christmas, fantastic news. We were allowed to open our emergency shelter. It's a 4-bed shelter that young people stay with us for up to 9 nights, so we can find them move on accommodation. And I have to say, since before Christmas, we haven't had an empty bed. But again, we've done some intensive work with the young people who've been with us and have spent time. We've done an awful lot of financial planning lessons with them, and cooking, and just planning their lifestyles. And so, yeah, it has been, again, really good. A lot of the work, the one-to-one work we've done in the day centre, we've managed to take upstairs and replicate into the night shelter. Across our houses, we started pre-COVID with 3 houses. And then during lockdown, we're asked by the council if we would take on another house, so that for young people who they were struggling to move out of area because of COVID, if we could take on another house, and we absolutely did. To support 4 more young people is just the most brilliant thing ever. So yes, so we now have 20 young people. And again, I'm sure, like all of you, we've all had days where we've gone like, flipping heck, these restrictions, what are we doing? Why are we doing? Our young people have been fab. We sat them all down and we taught them through the restrictions in relation to how they looked after themselves in the houses with the other young people and staff. Because obviously we have that, we don't have live-in permanent staff, we have a throughput of staff in the houses. And you know what? They've been absolutely fantastic. We've done a lot of reflective work, and we've looked back at kind of what do we do if we can't go out, what we're going to do. We had a fantastic gardens. I mean, they grew their own fruit and veg last year. We made jams, chutneys, all sorts of things. Did lots of celebration events. Did a bit of ready, steady cooking on Zoom, which was absolutely brilliant. So I kept dropping bags off at houses, and then they'd open them and they'd make whatever was in the bag. So the positive for me, because I'm sure I'm coming up to my time out, Gareth, the positives for me has been, we are a very busy charity. We have a lot of challenging young people, and we do some intensive work. I think lockdown, we've looked back on and said, it kind of gives you time to press the pause button, to reflect on what you do, to see how you can do it better and differently. And the feedback from the young people has been absolutely brilliant. And to open up the day centre, get the street homeless back in, keep them warm, get them clothed. The donations from the public, because we had to announce that we couldn't take kind of secondhand donations. Everything had to be new, or had to be money donations or supermarket vouchers. Honestly, they were coming in going, what do you need? Well, we had to completely clean the night shelter. We got all new bedding, new towels. So the donations didn't stop, but I have to say the public are amazing, and they adapted what they would have done to help us keep going. So that's Night Safe. I will put my details in the chat. If ever you want to come and have a nat to learn a bit more, come and work with us, please do. I've been there for 12 months and I've just loved every minute of it. It's brilliant. So that's me, Pam Holgate from Night Safe. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Pam. That was incredible. Yeah, I mean, we don't realise how privileged we are a lot of the time, do we? Some people, especially young people, are in so incredibly different circumstances to ourselves. It's just so heartbreaking. I think one of the things for me about COVID right in the early days was it proved we can take everybody off the street if there is a will to. Yeah. Because that there was suddenly loads of money there, wasn't there, to put people who were homeless into accommodation. And it just makes you wonder why couldn't we do that all the time?
Absolutely. And we did, every now and again you'll see I randomly post things, and sometimes I really think I should think about what I randomly post. So at Christmas I asked if I had 5 people who would donate a Christmas tree to our houses and day centre. I could have had a Night Safe forest. It was phenomenal. And all our street homeless all got a rucksack with brand new items in, and they were donated by the public. So yeah, it is, we live in a phenomenal community, and I see it on a daily basis. But yeah, it does make you stop and think about things that I take for granted, that other people, they don't demand, they come in, the street homeless, they don't demand, they don't want, they're eternally grateful. and they always say thank you. They're just brilliant.
Amazing, fantastic. And so true as well about that, last year being the opportunity to press pause and reflect back on what we do, and is there a better way that we can do it better. And I think, I'm sure someone else will be talking about this later on in the session, but actually that cooperation and collaboration between organizations was a key part of that, reflecting on how we can do things better as well. The supermarket vouchers, I'd never thought about the potential of donating supermarket vouchers, but that's actually really, really clever, because people can sometimes be wary about giving cash, can't they? And
yes,
they want to know, you have some guarantees on what kind of things their money might be spent on. So supermarket vouchers can be a bit of a sort of halfway house in that sense.
They're brilliant. And sometimes if we have a young person who is moving on and they need items that we know they can get from a supermarket, if you give them money, we all love money in our pockets, but if you give them vouchers, they have to buy them for what they need as opposed to what they kind of want. And it just makes them think really about that budgeting. So yeah, no, they're absolutely brilliant. They really are.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Pam. I'm sure people might have questions for you later on, but right now we are going to move over to Deborah McConnell. Oh, Deborah, you had your hand up. Was there something you wanted to ask of Pam before you start telling us about your own experiences?
No, it's absolutely fine. Thank you. I can ask later on. I didn't know.
Oh, you just put yourself on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, I just didn't know whether we could ask questions now or whether it's preferred I ask later, so it's not a problem. Yeah. So shall I kick off?
Yeah. I'll hand over to Deborah, and you can tell us all about what you've been up to.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Debbie McConnell, and I'm the chair of the Lancashire, Liverpool City Region and Greater Manchester group of CPRE, the Countryside charity. So what has COVID done for us and for our green spaces? You may have read about our work on the BBC, where we regularly speak, on social media, ditto, and in newspapers, campaigning to protect Greenbelt, green space and the countryside for the benefit of all, for the benefit of the climate and for the benefit of future generations and from inappropriate development. When lockdown forced millions of us, to stay at home, no one, I think, could really predict how we would cope. The more prosperous, with bigger houses, gardens, were really, really lucky. But those in flats or terraced homes, particularly with children, and only a yard or a balcony, if that, were trapped, some of them, in a living nightmare. Domestic abuse and violence rose. Children were deprived of opportunities to develop through their normal interaction with other children and through education. And then in spring 2020, people started to venture out. At their local park, their green space, and if they were lucky, the countryside, like Lancashire's area of outstanding natural beauty, the Forest of Bowland. For the first time, for many, and thanks to very quiet roads too, they heard birdsong like never before. If you ever hear the sound of a skylark, a curlew, the robin or the blackbird, it's the most wonderful, uplifting thing. For those who were not regular walkers, because they didn't have the time, had other commitments like jobs, they experienced greenness. They walked along grassy paths, they climbed stiles, hugged trees, were enthralled by butterflies, and gawped at wildflowers. They absorbed the peace and the tranquility, observed blue skies in the glorious summer of last year. And we were very, very lucky, weren't we, last summer? A lot of the time the weather was just beautiful. And they discovered something new and different. They noticed how much better it made them feel. Green is a very relaxing colour. And when people see it, they can experience a release of endorphins, the happy hormones. Folk were less anxious and more relaxed. They felt better, not only physically, but mentally. So despite the misery of the pandemic and the tragedy that it has been and continues to be, many more of us now than ever before value nature and the environment, the green environment. A larger proportion of the UK population say they want more protection for green space and for biodiversity, and for all of us, not just the well-off. We're only custodians of the planet. Our lives are not dress rehearsals. We only have one chance. We're a charity with a nationwide network. We have a group in every county. Do join us if you'd like to and become a member, or just use our website to discover more about the countryside, the green belt, nature, and how you and us can help protect it for all of us. If something is valued, and it has become more valued over the pandemic, it will be protected for now, for the planet, and for future generations. So we must do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. That's absolutely, so true for so many of us, that the way people think differently about nature now compared to this time last year, well, a little earlier than this time last year, it's absolutely amazing. There were so many more people venturing out into the countryside near their homes, and that's something that we have in abundance here in Lancashire, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you live, you're never really more than a short walk from that beautiful green belt.
Yeah.
Have.
Yes, and the threats to green belt and to the countryside, believe it or not, everybody, areas of outstanding natural beauty are like national parks. They're heavily protected. Since 2017, there has been a 5-fold increase in housing developments in AONBs. We're not talking about affordable homes here. We're talking about 4 and 5 bed executive detached houses with garages and that are completely car dependent. The current central government is determined to build over 300,000 houses a year. We have enough brownfield sites, previously used land, to build homes for people. And property developers like Taylor Wimpey Barrett, Persimmon, Redrow have land which they already own with planning permission for development, but they don't build on it. They want to drip it out slowly to keep house prices high. What we do have is a crisis of affordable homes. More than ever before, young people are living with their families, parents, because they cannot afford even to rent, and that's particularly true in London. We need affordable homes, truly affordable homes, not housing estates full of big houses which serve a limited number of people. Sorry, rant over.
Completely sort of, what's what I'm looking for? I'm aware at the moment there are some changes going through to the planning regulations, so it's very, very timely. That's the word I was looking for, because it is under these new regulations, potentially going to be even harder to protect the greenbelt land that
yes, it is. You're completely right. Just to give everybody an example of this, if you're not aware of it, at the moment, when a developer like Redrow applies to build 1,000 houses on greenbelt, depriving people that live near the greenbelt of their walking the dog opportunity, their place to go and get out, you can object. That is going to end. There will be zones where planning permission is automatic. All the note, you know, when you see notices on lampposts, which I think people quite like actually, saying, you know, this is going to happen at this house, or this is going to happen in your area. All of those are going to go. Where you can object to a development, you can only object after 6 weeks, and the planning inspectors can decide not to take into account any objection. The Conservative government is deeply supportive of the residential housing industry. In 2019, the year 2019 to 20, it received £1.3 million in donations from property developers. What's the quid pro quo for that? Property developers want to be able to build, and with a profit margin of 20%, which is a huge profit margin relative to supermarkets, relative to the fashion industry, apart from certain elements of that. Yeah, so yeah, do join the fight. What can I say?
That is really a scary thought, and it resonates what you said a short while ago, you know, about things. The more we value things, you know, the better we can protect them. You know, and people do need to protect their communities. And that's kind of what our Lancashire is here to do, is to encourage people to, you know, work in their communities for the betterment of their communities, just to make, you know, it a really lovely place to.
And you do a great job. You do a great job.
Thank you very much. That's lovely to hear, especially when we've got my boss on the call. So yes, we'll move on now to hear from our next guest, who, sorry, thank you, Debbie. We'll move on to hear from our next guest, Nicola McIntyre from Advocacy Focus. And again, this is going to be another dimension that that COVID has benefited us as a society. So Nicola, over to you.
Hi, can you see me okay? I can only see a quarter of my head.
But yeah, your head is almost in the screen.
I don't know what's going on there. I've had to move anyway. There you go. So hi, I'm Nicola from Advocacy Focus. So just to give you a little bit of a brief background as to who we are, if anybody doesn't know what advocacy is. But we have mainly the Lancashire contract, among a few others, in terms of providing advocacy for the area. So we support people who are going through vulnerable times of their life, from potentially the hospitals we work in. If people are sectioned, and we go in and support them, help them understand their rights, help them challenge their section if we need to do, from supporting people who are going through times of ill health where they can't manage the basics of cooking and cleaning and looking after themselves, and we help put care assessments in place. We also help people who are in homes who are denied of their liberty. So we may help maybe make sure they understand their rights, make sure that their support is needed in terms of accessing, going back home, or accessing family members, or maybe it's something to do with them education, things like that. To children's advocacy, where we represent children from a mixture of things, from maybe challenging where they live right now, maybe challenging their school routine, maybe challenging an issue that's going on in their home. And a layer among it all is all a bit of a safeguarding layer as well. So we help, we're running probably about 1,200 cases across our contracts at any one given time, or different people for various different things. But one of my job is actually, is the volunteer manager. My job is to bring volunteers in to help with that service. And Since COVID come along, honestly, I've been amazed in terms of the interest, in terms of people coming in volunteering. I don't know about it, if anybody else wants to share the same, that they've had an increase. So, for example, once upon a time, the interest on an annual year would probably be about 60 potentially. I've probably had 400, 500. It's been amazing. People have got in touch. So we've hit our targets really quickly in terms of securing volunteers. And today we've got about 30. So what our volunteers help with is they help with the children's side, and they take them out once a month for fun visits. So they're like, we move them out of their home where they're in a home with lots of other children, and they take them out on things that they want to do and have some really one-to-one time with them. So that's a once a month thing. So that's on the children's side. We also have our volunteers help with community advocacy, that we call it, which is helping people potentially communicate better with their doctors. So sometimes there's a frustration between accessing services, so we help them get their point across. They may be struggling with their mental health, they may be struggling with the communication skills. We help them, or our volunteers help them get their message across. We act as their voice for them, if you will. The third one is health and social complaints. So if somebody's gone through a really tough time with the NHS, and it could be really serious, from having their leg amputated and it's gone all wrong, and we help them clarify and get their points across, get their wishes and feelings across about what's gone wrong, and we help them articulate themselves and understand the process so that they can get the right answers and get the right support and what. So we help with those. But in terms of COVID, what we've done when we was in lockdown, we developed other new services that our volunteers help with. One was a really successful, the befriending one. That was brilliant. I think we did about 60 befriending cases during the time in COVID, where it was really well received. We've got some beautiful case studies out there that helped us understand where they were coming from, help them access other services such as food parcels, or there were a couple of safeguarding measures in there. But our volunteers was ringing them once a week, twice a week, just checking in with them when they were lonely and self-isolated. So that was really good. Just bear with me a second. I've done a PowerPoint and it's on a different screen. But yeah, so people, I think, in society, because of COVID, have really had a look in the mirror, haven't they, about what they want to do with themselves, what can they do, what can they help more. We've had a real theme, an increase in that. So fingers crossed, that is still happening. I'm still getting lots of applications through the post and I can't keep up with them, but we are. So I'm really suited, and I'm glad that that interest has gone for, has made a difference. So in terms of what we've done differently since COVID, obviously everybody's moved to the remote working environment. And pre-COVID, we'd have probably people in the classroom for maybe 2 full days. We've actually converted all that to online modelling, and people are liking it, because at the end of the day, when volunteers want to get involved with something, you want to just harness that, don't you, and grab hold of it. And for me, we've reduced a lot of the bureaucracy processes, a lot of the time spent travelling, getting to places when people have got other things going on. So we've actually condensed it all in a remote setting and done it in bite-sized chunks. But not only that, instead of just a classroom activity, we've converted it into virtual, but we've done recorded sessions, we've done e-learning, we've done obviously me talking and me interacting with people, but it's been a real mix of things in order to really mix it up, and only as well as to accommodate different learning styles, and that's been a real hit with us. In terms of volunteer engagement, I know that's really important for everybody on volunteers, to make sure we know they're appreciated. And like in Volunteer Week, we would normally, get people together and do all them kind of things. But actually, we've done some really small things, but actually this time has gained a lot more feedback to say, oh, I've really appreciated that. So for example, we got a load of books donated. So we sent all our volunteers a book. We sent them a lovely thank you message on a postcard. We sent them sachets of tea and coffee saying, have a coffee on us. We did, and then also we did like online Zoom stuff. And actually the most feedback we got about how people was really pleased about was the other little things that we did, rather than getting people together, if that makes sense. So we're definitely going to continue all those little things to just carry on with that kind of thing. So in summary, going forward, I think definitely we're going to move forward with the remote world and probably do a 8-20, because I think it's definitely something that's going to continue to make it easier for the volunteers, because we want to harness that. I've also shared some volunteers, because I've been undated. I've shared them. So when they've gone through the DBS process and I've not been able to keep them as busy and they want to do more, I've shared them with other people, because there's no point holding on people if you know that they're there, you've inducted them, you've done DBS checks and everything like that. You know, it's pointing to, I've shared some of the volunteers, so that's been really fruitful. And also, because we've moved a lot of these job roles away, that, for example, going like, you know, like when we've done stalls and we've needed people's help give leaflets out and stuff like that, some of our roles have gone. So the roles that are left have actually been a lot more higher skill set, if you will. So we've actually been a bit more selective and really looked out for the right quality of person, rather than just taking everybody that's applied and tried to keep them on board. So we've kind of balanced it a little bit with making sure we've got the right people for the right roles that we have available today because of what's happened with COVID. So in a nutshell, that's us really.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you so much for that. You mentioned you had a PowerPoint on your other screen. If you want to send that through to me, I'm happy to share that with everybody who's been on the call today when I send the recording.
Of course I will. Yes, of course I will. Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many things to unpick in what you just said there. Certainly, I can agree. The increase in volunteers. I'm a trustee for Home Start locally, and we've seen the same, plus Lancashire Volunteer Partnership had a tremendous response to the vaccine marshal opportunities that we had at the beginning of this year, and going back to the early on in the lockdown as well, the telephone befrienders that everybody was so desperate for. So it's incredible the number of volunteers on the books overall over at Lancashire Volunteer Partnership. And also, we've also really been able to capture this micro volunteering concept as well over the last 12 months, because people are more willing to volunteer when they can do it in bite-sized chunks, that they're not having to give a big time commitment right at the outset. But
and that's definitely something I'll go forward. It's just that rigid approach, isn't it? Or making it unrigid, more flexible. So, when are you free? That's fine. Because I'm agile myself, yes, that's fine. I'll do a 6:30, instead of leaving at the office at 5. And it's just, I can fit around it. I've not got young children, so I've been able to do that. So this Saturday I've got a visit because she works during the week. It's fine. We can, it's so much friendlier, isn't it? It's so much accessible. And another thing that I've done, because I've really improved my IT skills myself, pre-COVID, I had a lot of Word documents. I might have 5 different ones that people have to sign, like volunteer agreement, confidentiality agreement, all the different things, and all in Word and all that. I've converted it all into really digital Microsoft Forms things, so it's all clickable buttons, because we want it easier, don't we? We don't want people to think they're applying for Mensa when they're applying for a volunteer role, do we? But it's like, we want it to be, I want them as much as they want me. So I want it to be, as much as we want to be compliant, as much as we want to be clear about what is it we're doing here, we want to make it easier, because that's what it's about. It's a volunteer role, and I want them as much as they want me, and I want to make it easier.
I feel like I want that embroidered on the back of my work t-shirt. You're volunteering, not applying for Mensa.
Yes, it is, because it was, it was before. When I think about it now, a year and a half on, not complicated, but long-winded. I'll have to admit it was long-winded. I had some feedback from that, and I reacted on that, and I changed it, and it's for the better.
Yeah, and just following on from that, there's talk as well nationally, and I know there's talk in Lancashire as well about the concept of volunteer passports to make it easy for people to move between organisations when they are volunteering, because there's a lot of rigmarole sometimes.
Well, this is it. This is another thing that frustrates me. So I know that, I don't know whether this has got on. I know that our HR department, I've seen new legislations that people are able to share their DBS if it's live within the last 12 months. And that's really good news. That's good news for us, good news for society, because it's a process for us, it's a process for somebody else, and it's too costly. And not only that, you probably lose a little bit, maybe 5% of people going, I can't be bothered with all that again. You know what I mean? And we want to harness their interest and their enthusiasm when you've got them, and not switch them off with all the different bureaucratic paperwork when it's there. I know that, for example, with my children's service, I'm also part of a national network, and we are talking about a core training principles that we all agree to, we all sign up to. And as long as we've got that accreditation and I've got a volunteer with me and they move out of area, there's no reason why I can't sign something off that I'm part of that network with that accreditation has been given to me, that they can't just take that person without having to go through all the training again. It's crazy. It's crazy. You wouldn't do that in the real world if you was an employer, would you? If you're taking on somebody, a compliance manager, and there was a compliance manager at Aidway, right, we have to go through all the training again. It just wouldn't do it. So we shouldn't do it with volunteers either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for
You're
that contribution, Nicola. Like I said, there was so much in there. Thank you to all three of our guests who have spoken this afternoon. I'm going to turn the floor over to you now. Are there any questions that you have for any of our speakers, or any contributions that you want to make yourself, things that we haven't already talked about that are definite COVID positives? Deborah.
This is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, this is a question for, forgive me, I think the lady's name is Pam of Night Safe. Pam, did you find that because of lockdown, you had more young people being forced out of their homes because of abuse or domestic violence or other factors? Was there a greater demand for your services?
There was, absolutely there was. And the other element is the sofa surfers who, young people who spend time on a friend's sofa and then they've kind of outlived that. And it's okay if you're just if you're just there on a night sleeping and then you go off for the day. But with lockdown being we found that there was a number, and yes, the abuse and the young people who were fleeing situations that they felt they could manage if they were only in for a short period of time, but when it's within that lockdown, they just couldn't deal with it all. And we're very fortunate because we have some great relationships with, like I say, with the council, but with other providers, so that if we don't have a spare bed, that we would always work to find a spare bed. No isn't a response that comes from anybody at Night Safe. We always work to find them somewhere safe, and then work to find them a long-term plan.
Solution. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments? Tumbleweed? Okay, so Paul, are you there?
Gail, sorry, can I just interject? This is for Nicola from the Advocacy Services. There is a question for you in the chat. So if you...
Oh, of course, I'll go have a look now. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it or not. So yeah,
yeah.
Thank you for that. I'll have a look now.
No problem.
Just a bit more about the services that you provide. So I know Paul messaged me the other day to talk about the less charity, sort of voluntary sector specific benefits that we've had, more of the personal ones. One thing I know that I've got very into, and lots of others have, is gardening, which kind of fits in with what Deborah was talking about earlier, about our own personal well-being. And, you know, I suppose you could take the conversation as big as you wanted, couldn't you? Because it's not just that we're all doing things that benefit our well-being, it's that we are talking about it so much more as well. Mental health especially was still something that had so much stigma surrounding it, you know, when we jump back to 2019, and I think it has really really opened up. And this is absolutely perfect timing, because a little well-being exercise we've got with us this afternoon is some lovely goats. So here we are, goats on Zoom, live from Cronkshaw Fold Farm in Rosendale. Goats on Zoom, they were the first guests I had on my event when I started them last year. I thought it would be lovely for, in fact, it tied in with Mental Health Week, and I thought, how lovely just to watch some goats pottering around for 5 minutes. They also do goat yoga, incidentally, or they were doing. Worth checking the website to see whether that is still going on or not. Oh, we've got Jackie with us. Jackie. How lovely. What was I going to say then? Yeah, so, you know, it is, even digitally, we can get close to nature. And I'm very aware that I am filling the space with my voice, and actually maybe we should just be watching the goats. Oh, sorry, it's so cute. In fact, I'm not saying this was my idea, but I do remember having internal conversations with team members about we should have like a pets on Zoom event. And next thing I know, I think it's Lancashire Women, they were running a pets on Zoom session, like a therapy session. I've only got a lizard here. I'm getting emotional, but I have to be honest with you. If I was stood that close to a goat, I'd be really, really worried that it was going to eat my cardigan. I do talk a lot of nonsense sometimes, don't I? Oh! But yeah, these goats have been everywhere, all around the world. Taking that Lancashire brilliance. Agreed, Jackie. Don't know about everyone else, but I am always happy to have a goat on a Zoom call because, you know, why wouldn't you? Bye-bye. And if you haven't looked at their website, it's worth just going to the Goats on Zoom website because it is hilarious. They know how to do puns so well. Yes, absolutely brilliant. Hang on, let me just put it back on. So, does anyone have any other thoughts before I turn the floor over to Paul to talk to us about his positives? No? Okay then, Paul, over to you.
Thank you, everybody. And sorry I've had to nip in and out of the call. Very rude of me. I've just had some unexpected meetings which have just interfered. And halfway through this call, a gearbox arrived outside on a massive wagon. It's only supposed to come next week. So apologies, I'm all in a tears. And certainly, fantastic. My observations are nowhere near as impressive as everybody else's, but I could certainly resonate with a little bit of what everybody's talked about since the CPRE, the countryside. I've devoted a lot of time to the countryside on my doorstep, my back garden, because I couldn't go anywhere last summer. I ended up taking a really unusual for me interest in the birds in the garden. It became a personal mission to see how many species I could attract. I then developed an interest in photography, and it's just mushroomed out of nowhere, a kind of new set of hobbies and interests. So I'm even more green-fingered than I was at the moment. But actually, I'm taking the approach of I'm doing very little maintenance at all, because the birds seem to like it. We're unkempt and unmaintained, so it's given me an excuse to do very little in the garden. So I can resonate with that. When we talked about volunteering, we were really privileged to work with our sister organisation, the Lancashire Volunteer Partnership, in setting up and rolling out the vaccine Marshall volunteering project, which took off very, very quickly. And some of the engagement officers like Gareth and Gail were involved in some of those early marshalling sessions, because it took off before we had the volunteers in place. But before you knew it, we had 1,500 volunteers, and we had to process them, and we had to take them through some of those processes that Nicola talked about. They were going through 11 or 12 e-learning modules just to be a vaccine volunteer. It's like, here we go again. People are training to be rocket scientists. Why? And we managed to negotiate on that, and we managed to get those volunteer modules down to three early e-learning even modules before someone could get involved in that. But we were just overwhelmed with the response. It was just so fantastic. And in many ways, it's brought out the best in people, hasn't it? People have responded. They've seen an opportunity, and getting involved as a vaccine marshal, as a volunteer, has really fired up people's imaginations. And you know, there was a fantastic response, and it was great to be involved in that. On a personal level, again, coming back to me and the team, so some of the forced new ways of working were around working from home, using Zoom more, which you've all talked about and you've used. We now have Teams as well. So we're kind of being pushed down the Teams route. I still personally prefer Zoom, but technically on our work devices, we're supposed to be using Teams. So we're kind of working sometimes on our work devices, sometimes on other devices, depending on what the interest is and who the audience is. But certainly we've got 9 engagement officers, and as you would expect, they were out and about all the time prior to the pandemic. And then all of a sudden we couldn't go out. We were encouraged to work from home. Groups weren't out and about. So the engagement officers have all had to find new ways of working in order to engage. I personally used to do 50 miles a day, both into Lancashire and home, but traveling right across Lancashire. So prior to the pandemic, I was doing about 300 miles a week. At the moment, I'm working from home full time. So I've cut down, just on my own experience, I've cut down on 300 miles plus a week to 10 hours traveling time plus time traveling to meetings. 2 hours a day efficiency saved in traveling time. And when we replicate that up across the experiences of the 9 engagement officers and our support staff, we realize actually collectively, an unintended consequence is we've had to be much more, I think, efficient with our time. We now realize that to engage, our default was to get out and meet people face to face. There's still a role for that, of course. We're social creatures, and there's a lot to be done face to face. But actually, a lot of what we did previously, we could do over Zoom and over Teams. And was it best use of our time? So I think the pandemic's actually sort of pushed us forward, perhaps 4 or 5 years. It might have taken us 4 or 5 years on a kind of normal evolution to get to this point. But as a result of it, we realized we're having a better home life balance. We're not spending as much time in the car, not spending as much time traveling, reducing our carbon footprint significantly. So that has felt like a win-win. And one of the things we've done, I'd be interested to hear your experiences as well. We've done a staff survey to see what worked well working from home or remotely, what we need to do in the office, and that was just analysing those results. But by and large, the staff do not want to return to the former way of working, and like the freedom and like the flexibility that comes with being able to home work, being able to use technology, but with some freedom to get out and about. So we're talking about a kind of blended approach going back, not sticking people in offices or in police stations and expecting them to, you know, religiously work from there, but actually have more of a blended approach. And I think actually it's made our employers trust us more. That actually, if you do trust staff to work from home, they don't just stay in bed all day or watch Jeremy Kyle, show me age there, aren't I? But they do actually get out and produce. And actually, I think with the benefit of the home life balance, I think people could put more in. That's my personal view, and I'd really be interested to hear your experience. I actually think people are more motivated and put more in as a result of that, not less. And I don't think there's been a trust issue. So I think in many ways, the pandemic has forced employers to trust more in the staff and trust more in the judgment calls. But I'd really be interested to see if your views are similar or any different. And any feedback? Have you had similar experiences?
I totally agree, Paul. Yeah, I mean, gone are the times, I think, where we monitor that 9 till 5, isn't it? That has gone. With me and my staff, we look at outcomes, you know, are we getting through what we need to get through, you know? And certainly the comparison between what we're doing now and what we're doing before, we are more efficient. The numbers tell us that. So I am not monitoring whether someone's logged up, you know, if their diary's up to date, are they being proactive? Are they getting through the work? Can we look at when we do the reports compared to last quarter? Is there an improvement? Yes, that's it. I will not be monitoring 9 till 5 anymore.
And it's an interesting change of culture. It's almost now we realise work is something you do, but not necessarily somewhere you go. It doesn't have to be a fixed desk, does it? It doesn't have to be a place that you go to and you sit there for a certain period of time.
And that agile approach, like you say, when you've got lost the car journey, that's 2 hours a day. At 6 o'clock, I get up and go for a 45-minute walk now with my dog, and I sit with my dog all day. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. I love it. How can you not love it? I mean, like you said, I do agree with you, Paul. We've got to do a hybrid model. But if we can do a balance of this going forward, and the culture encourages that and wants that, it's a recipe for success going forward, especially when you're working in a charity where, for example, I could be on the road doing, I don't know, a whole week doing 30 superpositions. I can do it in a day now or a day and a half. And I've not been out on the road. We save the money, this charity petrol, and we can invest that money and time into other stuff so we can do more.
Brilliant.
The thing I think as well that's really good, Paul, and I don't know whether you agree, is that working from home gives so many more opportunities for women and for disabled people and people who have caring commitments, for somebody caring for young children or for people in the family that need support, or for the disabled and for the less able people themselves. The fact that you don't actually have to travel to a workplace, it frees up so much time. And with the increasing realization from employers that their staff can be trusted, you know, it enables people to juggle, to, if it doesn't suit them to work 9 till 5, but to work 8 till 4, or to work 10 till 6, whatever, then why not?
Why not?
And schools, incidentally, are looking at changing the working day for the year, I think is it 11, 12, 13? Years 11, 12 and 13, because teenagers need more sleep in the morning. They're thinking about starting their working day at 10 o'clock to stagger. That will ease congestion of people dropping off, you know, at school. It helps the teenagers because they will be more alert. And sleep is vital for teenagers, otherwise they simply can't function as well. So Yeah, I think there's just huge advantages with the flexibility.
And hopefully we'll see lots of modifications and applications like that going forward. And yeah, an interesting point. We hadn't even considered it from an equal opportunities point of view. It was just a response to the pandemic.
Yes.
But now you say that, I can see exactly what you mean. Yeah, there's so many benefits, and you know, opens up doors perhaps to those that weren't able to get to a workplace. And in our case, the police headquarters at Hutton is not particularly accessible and easy to get to. No. And you know, once you're on there, it's not easy to find somewhere to park even. So there are lots of benefits. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that.
Can I just add something to that, please?
Yeah.
Hiya. I'm from Onward Homes, and I manage the First Call shop in Accrington Arndale Centre. So I'm working from home and just going in probably half a day a week, but I'm still very mindful of those that are working on the front line. We've remained open right through. We've been operating 3 days in First Call and 2 days working from home. So from the 17th of June, everything supposedly can reopen as normal again. But I'm still very mindful that the fact that it can't just all be one-sided, that we can all work from home and those that are frontline have to go in every single day. So I'm looking to do 4 days in the centre and then 1 day at home where they can work on any monitoring they need to do or any confidential telephone calls and what have you, because it's about getting it right for everybody, isn't it? And not just for those who are in a team leader or a managerial position. So I think
is it face-to-face work or is it office-based when you say frontline?
Yeah, no, we've been doing face-to-face appointments right through the lockdown. Yeah. We've got all the safe systems of work in place.
Yeah.
We are preferring people to make appointments to come and see us, and we will identify whether that can be a telephone appointment or not. But those that don't have any IT or mobile phones and are vulnerable are absolutely able to come in and see us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just another, I suppose, area of the workplace to consider that, you know, we can do it from home and it's great because it's got lots of advantages, but it's about not forgetting those that do.
It's not practical in all situations, is it?
No. And also just to bear in mind our well-being or our mental health as well, because we all feel safe in our little cocoons at home. But actually, when I went into the office yesterday, I couldn't wait to get home. You know, I wanted to be back into my safety, my net, and it is about us trying to integrate a little bit more, so we are accepting of the big wide world again.
The difficulty I think with this, Jill, partly though, is, and I don't know whether you feel the same, but for some people, particularly women, they're actually safer at work.
Yeah.
Most of the time they may be safe at home, but the prospect for them of having to work mostly or entirely from home,
and that
can be really, really daunting for them. You know, in a way, going out is their safety net.
And hopefully, you know, HR will be hot on that. You know, that people can be open and honest about their home situations, and then the arrangements put in place for them to go into work. So I think it's about looking at everything, isn't it?
It's the flexibility, isn't it? You're right.
Just to add to that, there's some people in our team who live alone, and like we were saying before, don't maybe in flats, not have an outdoor space, and for them, work is their social life. It's their behavior. Because I've loved working from home and it's worked for me in so many different ways, and I only started with the council in April. Before that I was working for a charity, so I've kind of seen it on both sides, and both sides of it, just what you were saying before, Paul, that blended approach, it really working for people. But also on both sides there's been people where they've lived alone and it's been their social life and they cannot wait to get back into the office. And the idea of purely working from home for them is just the worst thing in the world. So it's got to be very carefully balanced, and I hope, like you said, Jill, that our HR departments will be hot on that and will be aware, and people will be honest about their home situations and they can take all that into account.
It's a really good point. I went into the office last Wednesday and I was the only one in and I couldn't wait to leave, so I realised it's not going into work that I miss, it's the people.
Yeah.
No, it's no good for me going into an empty office. I'm a social creature. I need to
Yes.
interact with people.
Yeah.
I was happier at home working alone than working in an empty office. It didn't feel right.
Yes.
Yeah.
They say, don't they, that when people leave a job, the vast majority of the time, they leave not because of more money, but because of issues with the people that they're working with. So a lot of people love going to work, partly because of the social life, you know, the fact that they're with a team or with a group of people in an environment where it's nice, people are good, and it's friendly, and there is good, really good man management. But if you find that management is weak, and there is bullying or unpleasantness or worse, then yeah, that can drive people to find alternative work. Yeah.
Nicola, was there something you were going to add on then?
Yes, definitely. So just talking about back to the hybrid model, as much as I love working from home, it really suits me in lots of ways. But on a Wednesday now, I get my little team together, and a lot of us do this now, where we do, like, we fill out the desk calendar, and we don't have as many in as normal, but we connect every Wednesday. Let's all just work together, just do whatever we need to do, what we're working in from, just to have coffee together, just to say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Just in between things. Oh, what about this? Can you help me with this? That usual stuff that we miss, but that connection, because we are social creatures. And I think it does us a world of good to have that balance. Just 100% for me would be too clinical, I guess. I think we still need that connection. We still need that, hi, how are you doing? You okay? That social connection. And I think you should hopefully try and consider the two in order for it to continue to be successful.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you everybody for your contributions here this afternoon. I'm aware we're a couple of minutes over time. We could carry on talking for quite a lot longer, I imagine, because there have been so many positives that we are hopefully going to take forward from our COVID pandemic experience, and, you know, for the better in the way that we live and work going forward. But again, thank you everybody for attending this afternoon. Thank you so much for your contributions, and I will hopefully see you back here again very soon for our next event. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.